Alright, I have delayed long enough. Let's talk Boneshaper. Boneshaper was the very first class I played in Frosthaven. I knew going into it that I wanted to do some speed running, and anticipated that Boneshaper maybe would not be the best class for that. So she is who I played first, and I very quickly fell in love with the class. I really, really love the design and the theming and the way all of that, you know, intertwines with the board game mechanics. It works really, really well. So let's get into it. The Boneshaper is an Aether-based summoning class, built entirely around the mechanic of spending your life force to temporarily bring back little shambling skeletons from the dead. With their little 3 health, 2 move, 2 attack, you're hoping that they can get off an attack or 2 and tank an attack or 2 before they die, but they're non-lost summons, so you can just bring them back over and over and over again. That was a really, really exciting change from Gloomhaven, because we still have to pay a stamina cost to bring in the summons most of the time. We have to pay with our health, but health is a recoverable resource, whereas lost cards, for the most part, you're not getting lost cards back. So having the stamina hit to be to your health rather than your hand size was a really, really interesting change for a summon-based class, and it makes the Boneshaper really, really fun to play. I've said this before and had people disagree with me, but I've thought about it, and I'm sticking to my guns. I approach the Boneshaper as a very defensively based summoning class. There's another summoning class in the game that anytime I'm playing them, I'm almost always thinking super offensively. How can I kill this target before it hurts my summons? And it's almost the exact opposite on the Boneshaper for me. I'm thinking, how can I get my skeleton hit as many times as possible on this turn? And we have a lot of tools for that. They're non-lost summons, so we don't really mind if they die. There are items that can give shieldings. We have cards, not really until level 4, but we have a really good level 4 card that can give a target a whole bunch of shield. We can enhance their health to make them tank extra hits. And then we also have curses, which aren't a consistent way of reducing incoming damage, but given that we have 12 cards and we're constantly summoning these non-lost summons who are constantly going to get hit because all they do is just go in and get hit, these curses are going to be drawn eventually, just because we can make a scenario last for so long. And then we also have this really nifty card, Wrath of the Turned Earth. Next 3 times the summon would take damage, negate the damage instead. So if you can have this card block like 15 damage and then a summon gets hit for 5 again, blocking 20 damage in a single turn is a really, really, really effective way to accomplish something. It's just that you're accomplishing a much more defensively minded task, and so you have to tell all of your allies, go all out, do all of your damage possible this turn, and hopefully you had 2 or 3 other summons, so you got, 3 or 4 attacks for 2 in on your turn. And we can go ahead and move on into the scoring. So all of these categories are ranked on a scale of 1 to 5, so 3 would be average, and we're going to start out a little bit low with initiative at a 1.5, movement with a 1.5, bossing with a 2, support with a 3.5, stamina with a 4, and damage with a 2.5. And we're starting out quite low with a 1.5 in initiative. And that's not to say that the initiative is poorly designed, because initiative is very important for a summoning class, and so it is almost purposely put there as an obstacle to slow you down, to prevent you from snowballing into an unstoppable monster. So if we want to go late, I got you. Boneshaper is perfect if you are trying to go last. We've got a lot of really good cards. All of our summon cards are really late, which is what you want to do with a summon, because you don't want to bring them in and have them instantly die. Then a lot of our damaging cards like Wrath of the Turned Earth and Command the Wretched are also pretty late, which can be a little bit painful. And we've got like a 43 on this loss attack here, which isn't exactly what you're looking for. If we're looking at fast cards, level 1, we start with an 18, which is just not good. We start with 1 card faster than 20, which is a little bit painful. It's a very good card though, at least, so you're always happy to play Flow of the Black River for either the top or the bottom. It almost gets a little bit more painful when we look at Exploding Corpse, because the top is a loss, so if you play that, you lose your second fastest card for the rest of the scenario. If you play the bottom, when the next enemy dies this round, all allies and enemies adjacent to it suffer 2 damage. That's a really nice effect that has to go before something dies at 21, which is just not the speed to say, you know, if an ally is going fast to move in and try to kill something, they're going faster than 21. So Exploding Corpse can be really hard to play because of that. And then already on our third fastest level 1 card, we're up to 26. Which is painful. At least we, you know, our third fastest card, at least it is a move 3, potentially a move 5 if we have our element. So it's nice to be able to go fast and move a lot. But 26 is just not something you can categorize as fast. And then at level 4, we do get a very nice card in Flesh Shield. I love the effect. I've played both halves of this card. Both halves are really, really nice. But if you have those elements up top, getting 2 shield and 2 retaliate on a target is really, really nice. And it doesn't have to be one of your summons. It could just be one of your allied friend characters if they're already really tanky. So really, really nice card. 16 initiative is still not that fast to be granting shields, but by the time you're level 4, you will definitely, hopefully, have a pair of Boots of Speed. And unfortunately, I'm really stuffy, but I'm recovering from illness. Unfortunately, as we level up, the initiative doesn't really get much better. We've seen 29 and 28. I mean, we can still go late. We can still go late if we want to. It's not going to be up until... not until level 9 that we get another card that is faster than 20. So it's a constant struggle, and I wish there were a positive for me to end on here. So the lack of fast initiative means that we are going to have to take turns where we go slow on purpose. And so you're going to need to try to find value in those turns. It's very easy to get some value out of just going late and summoning something, and you just need to sometimes make sure that you're playing 2 late cards when you do that, because we have so few fast cards, and we are a 12 card hand size class, meaning that hopefully in the first rest cycle you're going to be lasting at least 6 turns. And if we've played our 5 fastest initiatives, 1 2 3 4 5, that's putting us at like a 46 or a 53 on the 6th turn is the fastest you can go. You know, hopefully you've been able to save your 26 or your 30 or something like that. But even still, going at 30 and trying to underspeed something is not a great plan. And it's just the second big issue we really run into on the class is that the only way to get the maximum value out of your skeletons is to underspeed the monsters. If you go late and you bring in a summon, and then the next turn you're trying to go fast and you go at 26, but the monsters outspeed you and they kill your skeleton before he gets a single turn off, all you did was suffer 2 damage to block 1 attack. And it was your entire top action. You did no damage. And it feels really bad when things go poorly like that. And unfortunately, you know, Boots of Speed are a one-time use item. It takes a long time before we're able to long rest, and so the initiative is obtuse. Moving on, we get to another very sore subject when it comes to movement, and Boneshaper's movement herself is okay, if you're being very generous. At level 1, we have a move 4 in Dark Tidings, and if we have set Leaf for ourselves for Malicious Conversion, it's a move 5. Pretty easy to get the Leaf, because Decaying Will is a decent, I mean, an attack 2, range 5 poison, as long as they're next to one of your summons. That's a pretty good turn, so you don't mind setting the Leaf for yourself to get a move 5. Problem is that that's only 2 cards, and it's not too much of a problem. But Boneshaper kind of suffers from the fact that she has a whole bunch of really good bottom actions. It's just that all of these really cool bottom actions are not movement. We have no innate jump. We never get any teleport. We don't have any way to block Immobilize. The second scenario I ever played in Frosthaven, it's an escape scenario, and we were very near the end. My wife was playing the Blink Blade. She was ready to get out and escape. Her sister had already escaped. And I had 2 cards left, and I played my move 4, and the archers went faster than me, and they attacked me and immobilized me, and we lost because of me, and my wife still hates the Boneshaper to this day. Movement is just a very sore subject. It does not get made better by the fact that we bring in a whole bunch of summons. And so, you know, ideally, before we open a new door, we've brought in 2 or 3 skeletons that are all going to try to cram through the door at the exact same time we are. and it clogs everything up, and then we don't really have enough movement to get in. The skeletons we can command to move 2 with Flow of the Black River bottom, and command to move 2 with Command the Wretched top. I generally don't bring Approach Oblivion, but the bottom is a command to move 3. And it's just, we really, really, really need like a little bit from our allies to help. Maybe some like Icy Terrain or Banner Spear commanding movement. It's really, really easy. You know, we can make a really strong wall of death. It's just a slow moving snowball that once it gets to the monsters, it will kill them, hopefully. But it's very slow moving, and so it's pain. The more and more I talk, the stuffier I get. Things get slightly better on to bossing. We get a 2, which feels unfair because when the stars align, when everything works out well, we can be quite effective. You know, if we can have a whole bunch of summons, if we can have 3 skeletons all ready to move up and hit the boss, that's 3 attacks for 2 on our turn. Not bad. Then we could play the loss on Dark Tidings, and we get 3 more attacks for 2, so that's 6 attacks for 2. You know, maybe 1 skeleton didn't reach, but we can just go as fast as we possibly can with Flow of the Black River, move the skeleton into position, and then command an attack with Dark Tidings. If we have Boots of Speed going at 18, with Boots of Speed down to 8, guarantees that we outspeed all boss cards, so that's something. We can get a turn. If the target can be poisoned, that's like 5 or 6 attacks for 3, and we're starting to hit like Deathwalker numbers there. The problem is it's very difficult, especially on a boss, to actually get up to 3 skeletons out at the same time. Bosses always have at least 1 multi-target attack with their 50. But, you know, most bosses, either special 1 or special 2, it's going to be some sort of AoE effect. Our skeletons love to clump up, which means that they'll be targeted by multi-target or area of effect. Bosses also love to just, like, summon a whole bunch of things or maybe, like, teleport away. If a boss teleports away, your skeletons are going to take forever to get there. If the boss summons something else, maybe your skeletons are going to focus that instead. And it's really, really rare that you're going to be able to get yourself into a position for a super nice Dark Tiding. It gets way, way, way easier at level 7 with this Recycled Limbs card because we get to grant moves with all of our summons. And so this can be a really, really nice, really effective card. Unfortunately, this doesn't scale with Power Potions because Power Potions are our attacks, not all of our summons. So this doesn't scale nearly as well into bosses as some other classes do. But we do have good burst potential between Dark Tidings, Recycled Limbs, the bottom of Command the Wretched. You can use this on any ally, so you could use this on a Drifter to get an attack for 7 early game. That can be a really nice burst combo. You know, go fast with Flow of the Black River, maybe 2 skeletons get 2 attacks for 2, and then you command a Drifter and attack for 7. We can do some things. Then late game, we become super effective. We become the Bone Ball, the Bone Horde, is like the best card for 1v1ing bosses ever. So he's 7 health, move 3, base attack for 3, plus 1 for each token on the card. Well, how do we get tokens on the card? If you just move one of your skeletons on top of the Bone Ball, it dies, but the Bone Ball gets 1 token up to a maximum of 5, which means with 5 tokens, he would have base attack 8. Not only would he have base attack 8, but anytime he would suffer damage, you may choose to instead remove a token and suffer no damage instead. So if you're wounded and you would suffer 1, just take 1 damage, go down to 6 health, no problem. If you get crit for 10 and it does 20 damage, just take off a token instead, and boom, now you're only attacking for 7. But when your turn is Bone Ball attacks for 7, and then Wrath of the Turned Earth to make it attack for 8. And then you can still tank a base attack 12 from the boss. You are very, very, very effective. So level 8 and 9 Boneshaper, completely different class. Levels 1 through 7, you're really hoping that the stars can align. We do get the bottom of Wrath of the Turned Earth for this nice effect of summons ignoring up to three sources of damage, which gives us like a little base introduction to the Bone Ball mechanic that we'll get way later. But the Bone Balls is just way better because it does a lot more damage than our base 2 attack skeletons, and it has way more than 3 charges. So, you know, we really, really, really are waiting to get to that point where we can scale really well. And other than that, we're kind of just hoping that we can be defensive enough and just summon our skeletons that can tank while our allies deal all of the damage to kill bosses. Don't call it a comeback. We finally are getting some above average scores. We get a 3.5 in support. And we mentioned Flesh Shield earlier. Really good card. Give an ally Shield 2, Retaliate 2, maybe throw an item on there, make it Shield 3. Really, really nice. Putrid Cloud is one of the most interesting cards ever. This bottom loss, whenever an enemy attacks you or one of your summons, they gain poison. If an enemy is already poisoned, it suffers 1 damage from the attack instead. So it's like almost a permanent Retaliate 1 infinite range on you and all of your summons. I guess unless the target is immune to poison, then it's sad. That is very disappointing. But it's like slightly better than Retaliate 1 because you have multiple summons that might be attacking per turn, so getting a poison off on a target is probably going to be worth more than 1 damage onto them. So this is a really, really interesting card, and it's just really cool to play this and just be like, hey guys, everything's going to be poison in this scenario, so just don't worry. So I like this card. Putrid Cloud is fun. I've played it a couple times, and I played tabletop with a friend one time for a few scenarios, and he loved Putrid Cloud. He was playing Putrid Cloud like every scenario. I tried it some myself, and I wasn't playing the loss early enough, I think. So I need to give this card another try. But I mean, I have seen it be extremely effective, just more so when my friend was playing it than when I was. And then we are a very good healer. Fell Remedy, just a heal 2, but it's definitely possible for us to get all of our elements and turn this into either just a heal 4 or a heal 6, which can be really nice. Unfortunately, the heal only targets our allies, not ourselves, and since we do so much self-damage, we really need to be healing ourselves, which means that a lot of the time Fell Remedy is going to be played for the bottom. But there was one scenario I played where Boneshaper just wasn't very effective at doing her regular summony stuff, and I just went like full on support, and I healed an ally who also does some self-damage, and I was using Fell Remedy and Transfer of Essence with this bottom, where you heal 5 targeting an ally, and it's like, oh, here, take a heal 5, and then this sets dark, and then the next turn you take a heal 4, and you could pair that with an attack with poison and give a heal 6 to your ally. So a lot of really good healing, and then Transfer of Essence, we get even more poisoning for targets, and potentially some strengthening for our allies. Damned Horde gives us curses, which, like I said earlier, it's not consistent damage reduction, but it is eventual damage reduction. If you have a really, really tanky ally who's going to get hit, attacked maybe 20 times in the rest of the scenario because they have permanent shield and maybe some retaliate or something like that, these curses they'll come due eventually. Move and heal on Wail from the Beyond, and then the damage reduction from Wrath of the Turned Earth can be very supportive. And going fast and just granting an ally an attack with Command the Wretched can be really, really good. And attack 5, especially when they can buff it up from their own sources in some way, that can be a really, really, really nice burst damage tool. And then more healing with the Stitched Atrocity, who also adds wounds to all of his attacks. I've still never played this summon. Next Boneshaper I play, I'm definitely playing Putrid Cloud with the Unforgivable Methods, and just everything will be poison wounded, and hopefully it'll be really fun. Stamina, I would love to grant higher than a 4. I would love for it to be a 5, because we are a 12-card class after all. It really doesn't get better than that in terms of surviving a scenario because we have cards. The problem is just with all of the self-damage and the fact that a lot of our really good healing only affects allies and not ourselves. It means that if you ever take a stray errant attack, you were going your fastest card and the archers accidentally outsped you, or the archers got their multi-target card, or the boss is hitting in a circular AoE pattern this turn, it's very easy for one of those attacks to just glance by the Boneshaper, and you only had 2 health because you did a bunch of self-damage, and now you're dead or losing a card. But with non-loss summons tanking damage for us, with the Flesh Shield, both the top and this bottom effect. I love this bottom, the next source to one of your damage to one of your summons, negate the damage. Boom, we just suffer 2 damage ourselves for it. Wrath of the Turned Earth, we mentioned it a lot. Life and Death, this one's not nearly as good as Wrath of the Turned Earth, because generally you want your summons to be getting hit. Whereas Life and Death, it's the next 3 sources of damage to you, whereas it's very likely that a lot of the sources of damage to you are going to be just doing 2 damage to yourself. But I have thrown Life and Death on before, and then just had Boneshaper be the one to run in and open a door, and just tank for the round that I opened the door. And it is something that you can do. You know, we are not bad when it comes to stamina, especially because a lot of our effectiveness comes from just bringing in a lot of non-lost summons, which means that we can go for a really long time if we need to. I really think that Boneshaper is like the class from Frosthaven that would be the most buffed by playing through a Gloomhaven campaign instead of a Frosthaven campaign, because your length of scenario stamina potential is so insanely high. You can play scenarios for just so long, whereas that's not nearly as much of a focus in Frosthaven as it was in Gloomhaven. And when scenarios are much more focused on like being super effective on one particular turn, being able to say like, well, I can play a scenario for 30 rounds isn't always exactly what you need. But it is something we have access to if it's a really large and long scenario. And finally, onto damage. We're back slightly below average with the 2.5, but it's not horrible. It's not that bad. We have a lot of damage potential with our losses, especially. Exploding Corpse, attack 4, target everything adjacent to one of your summons. That's really good. Putrid Cloud gives us that same effect, but without being a loss, so it's just attack 2. Dark Tidings to get a bunch of attacks, Recycle the Limbs to get a bunch of attacks, Command the Wretched for a burst attack with your bottom, the Bone Ball for just insane attack 8 turns, and then, obviously we'll have a couple attack 2 summons in there, just throwing out some damage. Maybe we summon the Wraith early on, and the Wraith's gonna play the whole scenario with us and get off 15-16 attacks, and hopefully not just draw -1s the whole time with its base attack 1. Damage is okay. It's just I always find myself in the situation where it's like, yeah, if I could just have 3 summons out and the target's poisoned and they all attack, and then I Dark Tidings, and then that just doesn't ever happen. Like, my summons just, they can go in and they can get off 2 attacks before they die, but then they die, and maybe they have one buddy who's still alive, but then he's just gonna die at the same time as his friend. He only got 1 attack off, and then you find yourself, you're down to 2 health, and you can't summon anymore until you've taken some time to heal yourself up, or maybe get healed by an ally. And then if you're just trickling in 1 summon to move in and attack for 2 and then die, you feel miserable. So with everything lined up, with a whole bunch of summons in position, playing your losses, you can get good damage, but you don't scale with power potions. You don't really get any super good offensive items for summons, which means, outside of maybe like some sort of like explosion on death, maybe some sort of effect like that exists, but even then it's still not like insanely strong. All right, we finally are getting to something really, really cool. The attack modifier deck for Boneshaper is pretty awesome. I really like this thing, and I had looked at this a lot before I ever first started playing my first class, and it's like, the change in character sheets is so cool from Frosthaven, from Gloomhaven to Frosthaven. It's very obvious that it's a lot harder to. I need to cough. It's a lot harder to get all of these negative cards removed, but we have good effects. Instead of a -1, we get a +0 curse. Instead of a -1, we get a +0 poison. Instead of a -2, we get a 0. And so the only problem is that it just takes us 5 perks to do that, 5 perks to get that accomplished. And then in the meantime, it's like, well, do we want to add a +2, gain either element? We have a lot of really good uses for our elements. And because we have summons going right before us in turn order, even if you don't have your element, it's always possible that one of your summons is going to attack and draw it, and then you get to pick which element you want literally right before your turn. So, and if a skeleton is doing a base attack for 2, this card almost says crit and set either element you want. which is really, really cool. So like you want those early. Healing is a really big issue on the Boneshaper, and it only takes us 2 perks to get 6 rolling heal ones, heal on us, not just on the attacking target. So, you know, I like playing the Wraith just to draw a whole bunch of attack modifier cards, just because, like, if you play the Wraith on turn 1, or if you play it as your free summon, if you have this double check perk where you just get a free summon, that's really cool. You know, if the Wraith is going to attack 15, 16 times throughout a scenario, you know, if a deck is 20 cards and you're pulling, the Wraith itself is going to pull 15 of those 20 cards, it'll pull 3/4 of the deck, which means that you're going to get like maybe 4 rolling heal 1 cards out of the Wraith. So like playing it on turn 1 is kind of worth healing for. At least that's the way that I try to justify the Wraith, because those attack ones just they're never good, but I always go back to playing the Wraith, and it never works out for me. Then we have the replace a +0 with a +1, kill the attacking summon instead. I've never taken this. The problem is like that so many other things like feel so important. And then once you get to later game, if you're doing like a single summon build with the Bone Ball or the Stitched Atrocity, like I really want to try, you don't want to kill your attacking summon, so you don't get the +4s, you just get the +1s. So, you know, this is a really tempting card. This sounds so cool. I guess one of the small issues we run into is that we do plump up the deck. It becomes quite thick, because we remove all of our negative cards, but we replace every card. So we're still looking at a 20 card deck here, and then these replace the zeros. It's still a 20 card deck. Then we add the rollings, but they're rolling, so that doesn't really count. But we add 3 + 2, so that gets us up to 23 cards. And then if we want to ignore negative scenario effects and add 2 +1s, that's taking us up to 25 cards. And then it's also like, you kind of really want to ignore the negative scenario effects, because you don't want to start a scenario having taken damage, or start a scenario wounded. Both of those, or start poisoned. All of those are really bad on the Boneshaper, because you're doing damage to yourself anyway. So if you're already starting low, or if you're already starting wounded, that damage can add up really quickly and really throw you off your game. So you really want to ignore negative scenario effects, but you don't necessarily want to add those 2 +1s. Because you would much rather draw your other really fun cards instead. Then I also haven't really messed around very much with before each of your rests, you may kill a summon to bless self. I think the main point of that is to help you get the mastery that's impossible, other than using the Bone Ball, but even still, moving skeletons onto the Bone Ball 15 is an insane number of times to kill your own skeletons. And you don't really want to be adding a ton of blesses to yourself unless you're going for a fully stacked Bone Ball. That's pretty nice, but blessing yourself and then attacking for 2 is very disappointing. But, I mean, we get another super cool worded perk once each scenario when any character ally would become exhausted by suffering damage. You may suffer 2 damage to reduce their hit point value to 1 instead. So completely optional, you can do it whenever it would save a buddy's life, and that's just awesome. Like, that's so cool. That is an amazing effect. Really useful. So we've got a lot of really good stuff. It's just so painful because, like, it feels like you have to remove the -1s, otherwise your summons basically never do any damage, because attack 2 -1 into a 1 shield target. Boom, there goes that skeleton's turn. And then you have to take these rolling heals because you just need that health for yourself. And then you really want all of these worded perks because they're so good. You really want +2s because +2 plus an element was not to like. So there's so much going on here that you wish you could have all of it. Moving on to my recommended change for the Boneshaper. And this is a hard one because I really think that the design on Boneshaper is absolutely top-notch. Like, the class, it hits over and over again. The theming is just perfect. You have cards like Bone Dagger here with the bottom. You have this effect on Malicious Conversion as well, and one of the later cards, you know, mark a target. If the target dies this round, you can immediately play a card from your discard pile to perform the summon action, reducing the damage you would suffer by 2, and get that free summon. So, like, it's very snowbally, right? If you can manage to kill a target, then you get more skeletons out for free, And if you can have 3 skeletons out and there are only 1 or 2 monsters on the board, you'll just crush them. It's really, really strong. It's really good. It feels so thematic because it's, you know, I think in Yu-Gi-Oh! Your discard pile was called your graveyard. So it's like you're going and you're digging through your graveyard to bring the skeleton back to life. And then if you're able to do that, then you didn't have to sacrifice your own flesh for it. And it's just, it's so cool. It's so thematic. It just works perfectly. And so, like, you know, in order to prevent that snowball from just going out of control, they had to make the movement and the initiative really, really frustrating to deal with. And those are the obstacles that you're trying to get around, rather than the monsters most of the time. And so to help the Boneshaper out, I would try to make the early levels a little bit stronger like the later levels. I think one really cool way to do that would be to add to the loss on Wrath of the Turned Earth. The next 3 sources of damage to one of your summons negate the damage. Just add that we can move a tick back and move a tick back. We're stealing mechanics from the Drifter here, but if we could move a tick back by unsummoning a skeleton, that would be really nice, because, you know, before you rest, you want to move a tick back anyway. Maybe, you know, 2 ticks have been used, it's on its final tick, and you choose to unsummon a skeleton so that it'll go back 1, and then before you go into the next room, you summon one guy who you unsummon just to get this back. And, you know, it just gets us used to how good the Bone Ball is going to be when it gets to ignore five sources of damage. The fact that Wrath of the Turned Earth is only 3, and like we don't get to pick when the charges get used, that can be a little bit frustrating. That would be a nice buff. But the one big buff that, I'm not sure if buff is the right word, but one change that I would absolutely love to see revolves around this level 2 summon, the Unearthed Horror. My problem is that I have never used this card because I love Bone Dagger so much. I think Bone Dagger is so cool. This bottom effect is just everything I'm looking for. And then on the top, we have a loss that could potentially be like a loss attack 6, which is, you know, or maybe even more, which is just really cool and really good. But I learned on the last Boneshaper that I played that I really did kind of enjoy the single summon playstyle. I just didn't really get to try it until the Bone Ball. At level 1, the only single summon card we have is the Wraith, the Angry Spirit, and it's a lost summon. It's our only level 1 lost summon, but it's just attacking for 1 every turn. You can't play a support build where you're supporting your carry and you're taking care of a single summon. You can't do that based on something that has just a base attack 1. So I think that this level 2 card should actually just be a level 1 card. I don't know which level 1 card you get rid of instead, and I don't know what level 2 card you replace it with. But I think that it would be really nice, you know, if you read any Boneshaper guide, they'll say like, you've got like 2 main builds. You can go like a Skeleton Swarm, or you can go a single summon build. But the single summon build doesn't start until level 2, and it doesn't start until level 2 unless you pick this card. And so I think it would be really cool if we could start the single summon build at level 1. And that way, if you're going into a scenario where like there's a whole bunch of multi-target attacks or Shrike Fiends that just make all of your skeletons suffer and instantly die, then the single target summon was way, way, way stronger. And so if you're going into a Shrike Fiend scenario, but you didn't take this card at level 2, that's the scenario that I played, where I just turned into a heal bot and I just healed my ally, and that was like all I did the whole scenario, because Shrike Fiends were just going to kill my skeletons if I had summoned them. And the Unearthed Horror would have solved that issue for me if I had had access to the card. And finally, we are there to the tier list part of the tier list video, and we need to find a home for the Boneshaper. Now, if we were just going on how well designed the class is, we'd be going S or A+, something like that. I think that this is, Boneshaper was the perfect fusion of game mechanics and theming. It works so well. It's probably the best class at that, which just makes it so much fun and so cool. And so I really, really do enjoy playing the Boneshaper, unless things are going horribly wrong. And unfortunately for the Boneshaper, I exclusively play the game on increased difficulty, which is not good for her. Boneshaper is definitely built around snowballing. You want so many things that you can just crush the monsters really easily, and 3 health, attack 2 skeletons really struggle when the first scenario you're playing against level 3 or level 4 Algox guards, and they have 15 health and base attack 5. So, with that in mind, Boneshaper has to go all the way down to the bottom. In sometimes D, sometimes A. You know, you're definitely an A tier or A plus tier class at level 8 plus once you have the Bone Ball. That's by far the greatest summon of all time. So much fun to use. But outside of that, you know, if everything lines up perfectly, we can play losses to get really nice effective attacks in. But more so than any other class, I just find myself in a situation where it's like, I only have cards that are like 46 plus initiative right here, and I would really like to go faster than the monsters, and that's just not going to happen. Or, I only have 2 health, and I've already played both of my heal self cards, so I can't summon any more skeletons, so I guess my turn is move to attack for 2, or even just I can't. I'm just gonna have to sit back here and long rest. Even though I have cards in my hand, can't move in and attack for 2 because I'm so low, and any random AoE or suffer damage or retaliate or anything off a monster, and the Boneshaper herself is just dead. And any damage that hits you is so sticky, and it hurts so badly. And more than any other class, sometimes Boneshaper just feels D tier. D for dead.